Dobson from CSULA, and she's going to be telling us today about crystalline, Topos, and profinite completion of music, far from Cape Cod. Please help me welcome Shanna.
Hi everyone, good morning. I love this campus because it's so just sort of out here. The history of this place is really interesting. Anyway, I really like it. It's like it's either a prison or a university. Yeah, a mental institution. There's a lot of like neatness in this here. Yeah, but the math people.
I lost my pen.
You know? Yeah. Okay. Great. So I am really interested in Peter Schulze and Laurent Farb's work on. They're doing like the Langlands on P-reductive groups, and so all this is a little out there, right? So I jumped into Topos, and so these are like, it's totally a preliminary report. I'll have more things that I can actually prove, like the AMS sectional meeting in November, so I'm excited about that, right? But this is sort of like an overview of what I'm even trying to say. So in the abstract, Gatesforian and Röntgen have done these really, really beautiful work talking about crystals and D-modules. So the term crystals are being these quasi-coherent sheaths on this thing called the DRAM pre-stack. So if you're working in like sheaf space and you sort of know what I'm talking about, quasi-coherent just means it's a sheaf of modules over the structure sheaf of this sort of local ring, which is totally random. Okay. I'm really interested in this, what we're going to be calling like the pro-object. So Gatesforian launched this sort of, what is this like proper co-limit idea? And so here there's just a lot of maps with these morphisms, and you can see I do a lot of like kind of work in physics, and Nima Hamed did this really cool idea. We got rid of the Feynman diagrams. I don't know if anybody's looked at any of that stuff. But you replace all the Feynman diagrams with these amplitude hedrons with black-white vertices. And so I'd never seen color added to like graph, you know? So I thought there's a lot of work to be done here in the Topos space. If we sort of made this sort of like, what if you added black-white to the morphisms? You know, I'm not sure if that'd be like an extra layer of structure or something like this. And these are terribly non-Noetherian as well, right? So maybe the badness of the non-Noetherian could be in the color, something like this. Okay. So, but the motivation is that I want to actually change the category number of the Gaga principle, of Sayre's Gaga principle. So he does geometric. He puts this equivalence between, you know, analytic geometry and algebraic geometry, which is actually really pretty. Because I'm really interested in arithmetic geometry and finite characteristic. So Jacob Lorentz did the same on the category number, which is basically the abstraction of what you're actually trying to deal with. So, and he employs this geometric logic. So, but to actually, if you want to take Gaga to the topoid level, then take it to like infinity topo, and you need infinity stacks there. And I just really like the stack idea because your two sheets, you're now taking values in categories, not sets, and I think that's actually much, much more nice to handle all this. Great. So what in the world, why does he invent this crystal? So you're trying to figure out how do you actually define a connection on an object that's not linear, right? So your basic fundamental notion of parallel transport, what are you going to do when the thing is like a sheaf of a category? So they had to invoke scheme theoretic ideas. So rather than you have this cool algebraic analog of parallel transport using this notion of what you would call infinitesimal closeness for the R points of a scheme where R is either like a p-adic ring or something like this. But so he replaced this notion of infinite of transporting by this infinitesimal closeness. Okay, great. So they invented this. So they Gatesforian and Röntgen are going to call it a quasi-coherent sheaf, a crystal quasi-coherent sheaf, which is equivariant with respect to that relation of infinitesimal closeness. So you have this new notion of closeness to actually get the idea of what it means to be transporting on this thing. So you haven't, they prove this equivalence, you have this abelian category of crystals that's equivalent to the left modules. So basically, what the crystals are doing, they're giving you a notion of a sheaf with a flat connection. So what in the world are we talking about? It's to actually figure out the construction to derive this sort of crystalline topos. You take they work in the category of in derived algebraic geometry, so there's a lot of hot buzz about derived everything. And so you're basically replacing your regular rings with these E-infinity rings. And so you have a new E-infinity ring spectrum, which is actually quite beautiful. So to each pre-stack of locally almost finite type, which is an analytic statement, you can assign this stable infinity category, Y just mapped to the crystal, and you can get these sort of a left morphism and a right morphism. And so you've got this functor that's going from the quasi-coherent to the end, which is an inductive object, in the coherent sheaf, and you dualize this complex. So, but you have a notion of a six-functor formalism here. And so you can get a pullback, you get a push forward, you get everything else. But these the map between the two derived algebraic geometry schemes are actually kind of nice. So what's the proper setting? Well, you have to throw it in the DAG. You get an E-infinity ring spectra, which we're really trying to regard the higher homotopy groups, the generalization of the nilpotent elements. So everything's sort of reductive here, which is neat. So my idea is like, well, let's just push this into the Topos setting, which requires a lot of work and a lot of structure. So if you can actually get crystals of categories over these things and regard the higher homotopy groups as the derived ring component, I think it's also, kind of cool. So then you can replace the category of quasi-coherent shapes with a category of infinitely coherent shapes, if you're actually in the right setting. So for this crystalline topos, I was saying, well, why don't we just take this like infinity topoi, and normally there's three conditions for the infinity topoi, which I define next to make sure we're okay. And then, so if you just replace this kappa closure with this crystal cone, and that's what I'm trying to do, and it requires a lot of structure. So if you take the kappa colimit out and try to make it in terms of this crystal, which you've already said you can replace it, you can think about in terms of category, then it'd be sort of awesome. So to actually push yourself into the topos category is what I'm trying to do. So infinity topoi, there's a lot of work that's taking place over like p-adics and things like this. But so basically, Grothendieck is saying that a topos is like a place where one can do mathematics, space. So an infinity topos is somewhere where you can do homotopy theory, and which is a lot of like relational work. And I'm not sure what inspired our first speaker to do the same thing, but there's a lot of work like get out of the set, like the notion of sets, and let's start talking about like relations and deformation theories and stuff. And I like that. So cool. So what is it? So it's actually an infinity category. People familiar with category theory a little bit? Well, I know you, yeah. Miss Wizard in the back, yes, she is. But everybody else. Anybody else? Yeah? Fun-ish? Yeah, okay. I found more freedom there because, I don't know, I just did, okay? Maybe I'm just as abstract as that, so I thought it was nice. But anyway, so you have three conditions to be an infinity topos. It has to be presentable, which means it has colimits, so these sort of natural objects, these pro objects just push right out of it. So it'd be natural if I wanted a pro object to put everything in the crystal topos category. It's also locally Cartesian closed, which means it has pullbacks, which is sort of nice. And you have, again, a six-functor formalism that you can get a push forward and an F lower shriek, and you can get like these maps that are actually okay. It also satisfies a descent condition, which is actually really important. That's what you need. A lot of work in descent theory, right? So again, if you can make this like push this in the crystalline, you can replace this kappa cone, which the kappa cone is, and what makes it like locally presentable is that you can have things that are kappa distance apart, and you can actually get an inductive object out of that. So kappa is just like the distance from which you can actually get this thing. So sort of why don't we make it like a crystal distance, which is like kind of cool. There's like consciousness researchers like neurologists and stuff that have come to me because I was thinking like a lot of neurology or genomics could probably be reinterpreted in terms of topoi. There's a lot of cool stuff there. So again, they're working in something called a slice category, which is nice, where you can get this notion of like overness. And so if you have this like one topoi and an infinity topoi, then this is just sort of telling you, oh great, space, the notion of space here would actually just be an infinity category that we call freely generated under co-limits, so you can actually get this thing to the general. Yay. So what is this pro object? So it's this projected limit. And so you see a lot of work like that. Everything is a pro object. There's just a bunch of limits that are together. So why are you guaranteed these limits is because you've got presentable locally Cartesian closed and descent conditions. So you get the proness like right out of the thing. And you get chains of these homology groups, which are actually really interesting. But what's interesting is that not just cohomology is interesting. What's interesting to us is like hypercohomology. And so I'll be talking a little bit about that. You have this notion of a tower, which is a category 3 version of a sheaf over a point. So normally sheaves are not over singular things as points. And with that, you have this notion of singular support, which is actually really important. So if you can actually interpret the crystal as this sort of tower object. And again, there's a lot of work with Peter Schulze and everyone doing these Leuven-Tate infinity towers, which are chains of either abelian groups or something. So Hawaii is doing some really, really nice work. And so he actually put together this proper map of every morph as a mapping between a cofilter limits. He's going to get these commuting diagrams between the towers. So you can also get commuting diagrams between the towers of the crystals, which I think is like awesome. So to actually get a pro-finite group, a completion of a group, you're actually going to have the limit over the diagram with all the objects, just finite quotients of this. So the completion is actually a finite group, and it's nice. The topological version of this should be equivalence between the two. But so for classical Galois theory, it's just like class field theory plus like a special case of Galois theory for schemes, which is totally okay. But if you actually want to go to higher Galois theory, then you can actually get a sort of class. It's neat to go from Galois to higher. You can actually reinterpret sort of Galois automorphic forms and things in terms of locally constant sheaves and a fundamental group of the Topos. So Hawaii's work on that is really great, and I hope to finish something with him. So it's neat if you can actually, so instead of just working in fields, you can extend the fieldness to this notion of a locally constant sheaf plus whatever the Galois group is doing with the fundamental group. So when I said to change the category number, you should probably work in the attic version of all of this. So anybody remember with Arithmetic-Geometry and stuff? Anything p-attic? Right, so an attic is a new valuation, so it's like a new way to complete the rationals. And so you add this p-attic valuation where two numbers are close if they're divisible by a high power of p. Which will be totally weird, and p-attic is actually really nice. So most people work over qp, and you get this coherent sheaf phenomenon. So the basic thing that you're actually studying is this SPA-RR+, which is called the attic spectrum. So which is actually the attic spectrum. So remember the spectrum is a set of ideals of some kind of ring. And a hero pair is a very, very specific ring with this RR+. So it's great. But what would it actually mean? So we know what compact support means, but to have singular support means the area of the function is not zero, is on these singular things. So if you have singular support and you define the notion of sheaves over a point, then you're actually in the right proper setting. So if I can get a crystal as a Huber pair, that's what I'm trying to do in about a month, I have some like rough ideas. That's what we're trying to do. Then if you formulate everything in terms of SPA-RR+, then you can actually do some work here. So the crystalline cohomology, which is actually really interesting. It's just normally an abelian sheaf cohomology, but it's over with respect to schemes. And so you're working over the crystalline site, which is actually really kind of cool. So it is a Biot cohomology, but it's over schemes, which is actually kind of cool. So why is it like if we can take the cohomology and reinterpret it in terms of like a hypercohomology? So I wasn't sure where you were getting your coefficients from, but normally the coefficients for cohomology, they must be in this like very restrict Ehlenberg-MacLane thing. The coefficients have to come from this de-looping space. But if you can make it a hypercohomology, then any chain complex is allowed as a coefficient object. That requires a little more work, but if you can actually make the sort of crystalline cohomology some kind of hyper cohomology, then you can get the crystalline, the coefficients in the crystal Topos. And so maybe that sort of structure would actually work something like here. And you could redefine this functor 1,000 years ago as a hyper-derived functor to actually map everything. This one, and there you go, here. So this functor Q coherent to N coherent. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe that'll work to make it the same hypercrystalline. So that Farr-Fontaine curve is really wild. So normally there's vector bundles over this curve, which are called Stukas, and so these specific Stukas are really, really, really important for realizing geometric lengths. And so that's what Yates were never used to. So anyway, it's a regular Noetherian scheme over QP. Curl dimension 1. Curl dimension is just the supremum of the lengths of the chains and the prime ideals. So we hopefully have curl dimension 1. And you have this point in infinity. So again, there's this notion of Noetherian up to symmetry for a lot of the Topos work. So if I can actually get that as a pro object, if that can actually be some kind of result, like a push out, a push forward, that'd be nice. You can get, so again, take the Shuko idea, which is normally a vector bundle over the Farr-Fontaine curve. If you can make that a pro Shuko, so again, this could all result from something, I think you'd have it'd be more contained. And again, if you can get it as an indecoherent sheaf, that's totally rad. So hypercrystalline cohomology, and then we have like 4 of the functors, okay, and there's 2 more with the lower shriek, which is actually sort of difficult to get. Cool. And so in the future, the other thing, there's a lot of work like pro-Etel relations and things like this. Way back at the beginning of this, the cool thing in the abstract is that if you actually want to replace this thing, if you actually want to make this pro-finite, you have to take a perfectoid field and replace it by a perfectoid space. So if anyone has known like what the perfectoid spaces are, that's Schulz's work. And if you actually want to work there, he's got this beautiful notion of what a diamond is. So he works in this category of diamond, him and Jared Weinstein. And a diamond is basically, you take a pro-Etel equivalence relation, inside the category of perfectoid spaces. And if you can write if you can write a space as a quotient of a perfectoid space in the equivalence relation, then you can get what's called a diamond. And so he's found a lot of work working over the spectrum of the diamond. So if you can construct this grand unified theory using a telecohomology of diamonds, with that as a torsor is just a principal G number, in a layer of abstraction. And I think we actually have some. Awesome. I'll say good.